that you may be surprised to hear about. And I'm going to ask Kelly Sutherland to come up and introduce our guest.
Thank you, everyone. So this evening we have with us one of the founding persons of a group called Scarlet Rose. And their office is located across the street from my office at Olympic College. They're down by Evergreen Park area. Her name is Rosie Garbe, and I just told her it reminds me of Barbie. That's how you'll remember it, Garbe. So Rosie is going to speak about human exploitation, the new modern day slavery in this country and around the world. I'm sure many of you are following the Jeffrey Epstein case. It's gotten worldwide, following in the media. I've been following it for months myself. So it's a very timely topic, and I thought it's good for us to learn something about all of this, how trafficking occurs, what's the difference between sexual slavery and economic slavery, and all of those things. So please welcome Rosie to the front of the room and save your questions for the end.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for the invitation to come and speak tonight. I'll preface by saying that at Scarlet Road, we serve sexual exploitation victims. So, and I'll do a little defining of that. And I will be able to address commercial labor trafficking, an international issue, but my expertise truly is here in our local community. So my reference will always come back to here and what we can do here in our community and what it looks like. So at Scarlet Road, we have been around since 2008. So it's still relatively new, but have really developed a strong foothold here in the Kitsap community. We really started out as an awareness organization. And in truth, we did not start as an organization. We started as a band of young women who were very concerned about this issue on both a global and a local level, who had been working with victims of exploitation and trafficking all over the world. And were extremely frustrated when we came back to our home community with a lack of knowledge and understanding around this issue. And then what led us down the road of creating Scarlet Road was really a frustration of the lack of services that were being offered for this population on a local level. And there's a lot of variances to that, which I will go into later. Our mission at Scarlet Road is that through holistic care, we offer the hope of freedom to those who have been sexually exploited. So we see each person that comes into our program as a whole person with a whole set of needs. And our hope is that we can address and serve them as to the best of our ability within our scope, and to really see them for everything that they are, which is not just the victim, but it's also the survivor, and it comes with many, many strengths. And I'll talk a little bit about serving this population as we go along. So that gives you a little bit of background on us. We are truly a social services organization by every fiber of our being. But we also really believe in mobilizing the community. And so our paramount and first priority always goes is to serving the individual who's suffered the abuse. We really believe that if we can prevent the abuse, why shouldn't we? So it's exciting to be in a room with you guys tonight because you have the ability to be a voice for us in some of the political arenas where we don't always have that opportunity. And we're very reliant on our community to be that voice for not only the agency, but for each individual that we serve. Often their voice is stripped. And that's really a big piece of what we're going to talk about tonight. The lack of the ability to stand up and protect themselves, and the lack of the ability to have dignity and agency as human right. And so when we think about slavery and what that looks like today, what we see is a variety of stripping of that dignity. And it can look like a lot of different things. When we talk about sexual exploitation, that kind of goes to our core of who we are as beings, and can be an extremely long and challenging process to recover from. So I want to start with a little bit of definition for you guys. You will notice that I use the language sexual exploitation often and not human trafficking often. And I do that because we serve individuals who are victims of sexual exploitation. And whereas human trafficking is not an all-encompassing legal term for us. Human trafficking refers to an illegal act, which is force, fraud, or coercion, or harboring of an individual for the purposes of exchange of goods, basically, or exchange of property, or exchange of any sort of an exchange. It does not have to be monetary. However, we see exploitation happening in very legal frameworks, particularly within the sex industry. So we see that we have strip clubs, we have bikini baristas, we have a variety of other pornography, a variety of other sexual industries that are thriving off of illegal activity. And so that's the reason that I use exploitation, because it really truly is exploitation. It doesn't always look like the way our law has formally defined human trafficking. Another reason why I use exploitation is that in most cases, it can be very difficult to label a human trafficking victim as an adult. And human trafficking has almost exclusively now been reserved for juveniles under 18, because it is much easier to define a juvenile as a victim of abuse the way that our legal system works. But at Scarlet Road, we serve individuals from the ages of 4 all the way up to 64 and beyond. And so sometimes our legal frameworks don't always give the allowances that are needed for that definition. So that just gives you a little background why I use that language. I want to talk to you a little bit about the climate of exploitation, and particularly in Kitsap and global level too. So in Kitsap, what we found through our research and our data and what our clients have disclosed is that the average entry into prostitution, which 98% of individuals in prostitution have disclosed that they've been controlled by an abuser or a pimp in some way. So when I say prostitution, the way I understand that is that in most cases, they have been exploited. So that age is 15 years old. That is a very young age. And if you think about a 15-year-old, their capacity to make decisions, what they're looking for in life, and their ability to say no and protect themselves, all impact their ability to be victimized, for a predator to pursue them, and for really their safety to be compromised. So this year alone at Scarlet Road, we've served over 100 individuals. And I don't have the exact number, but the last time I checked, it was around 70% were born and raised from Kitsap County. So a lot of our exploitation victims here in the community are actually coming from our community and being exploited in our community. And the reason for that is that there is a demand in our community. If there wasn't a demand, we wouldn't have a supply, right? Basic economics. Nationally, there is between 300 and 500,000 victims. That is a really loose number, And I'll tell you why it's a really loose number. We do not have good statistical analysis on this issue. There are no overarching governing bodies in our government that is tracking this information. And not only do we have a lack of statistical information, this is a largely underreported issue. There are a lot of victims who go completely unseen and maybe are in a life of prostitution or exploitation for some time, and then maybe are able to get out and free themselves and never report it to anybody. Because still in our nation, there's huge areas where services just don't even exist for people. So I would say this number is inaccurate completely. I recently heard, and I had never even made this connection, but our government has no law enforcement agency specifically designed to tackle this issue, right? We have the DEA. We have a variety of other agencies that are going after criminal activity, and the reality is this is criminal activity. However, our government has chosen not to make any movement towards creating an agency specifically to address this issue, despite the fact that we know it's a huge issue in our community. So, if I can do a little bit of background, I want to talk about it on a global number. I don't have a firm global number for the same reasons that I do not have a firm national number. It's been wagered to say there are over 2 million. I would say it's probably much higher than that. The UN has done some workaround numbers, but again, country to country, we don't have good statistics on this issue. We see this even at Scarlet Road. Victims being transferred into the United States and out of the United States. We have served individuals who have been transferred from all over the globe, who have been exploited in a variety of ways. However, I think that where we see the most close connections for international trafficking, in Kitsap anyway, has been through either corrupt business channels or corrupt government channels, right? And the reason for that is because there's money involved in this industry. There is a high level of financial gain when you start exploiting an individual. And we're going to talk about the reason for that, but if you think about just a really easy example, if you have a drug and you transport it and you sell it, it's gone. If you have a person and you sell them, they come back to you with cash and you sell them again. And you sell them again, and you sell them again, and you sell them again. You can make astronomical amounts of money off of this industry, all the way from the individual pimp to the rings that we see, the trafficking rings that are international. And it is a complex, corrupt industry. It's wagered to say that this is the second largest criminal industry in the world. The only reason it would be the second largest criminal industry in the world is if there was money involved, right? So I would challenge you guys to really think about the fact that this is an issue that we're not addressing from a government perspective. We're doing very little to address this. So in Kitsap, we have prostitution, we have pornography, we have brothels, we have bikini baristas, we have human trafficking in its rawest form. We have all of these types of exploitation industries in a really, I was going to say Kona. We're not really Kona, a border or anything Kitsap. But we're pretty small, right? We're a small community, we're a veteran community, we're a little bit rural. If it's happening here, it's happening everywhere. And that's really the reality. Across the nation and across the world, it is happening in every community. And so I think it's really important that we embrace that fact. Almost every time I go out and speak in the public, people start with the question of, well, it's not happening here, it's coming from somewhere else, right? The reality is, where are our most vulnerable populations? There are children. And they're right in front of us. And so predators are preying on our most vulnerable populations because they're the easiest to get. So, I want to talk to you a little bit about how this process happens. And I think that what's interesting is that I talk a ton about sexual exploitation, right? But when we also see labor exploitation and economic exploitation, it often happens in a really similar way. So, I want to look at this little graph. I want to step out of the way, actually, so you guys can see. I don't want to be in the way. So, it starts with a vulnerability. Now, for a 15-year-old girl like we talked about from Kitsap County, what are some of her vulnerabilities? Well, for starters, simply her age is a vulnerability. She is vulnerable. Or, if it's a young boy, he is vulnerable. A 15-year-old, first and foremost, does not have a fully formed brain. Their frontal lobe, which is their decision-making process, has not formed fully until they're 25. So they are in the stages of development of learning how to make decisions. And they're testing the boundaries, right? And we know that 15-year-olds can be a little contentious, a little difficult, and behaviorally challenging, and sometimes you want to give them a good kick in the butt. But they are in that process of experiencing who they are and finding their identity. And so there is pushback. And they're looking for things. And a predator preys on those things they're looking for. Now, when you take that already highly vulnerable set, and then you add extra vulnerabilities or adverse experiences into that person's life, it could be poverty, it could be abuse, it could be absentee parents in the home, it could be dysfunctional communities that they're a part of, it could be bullying, it could be like the list goes on and on and on, right? There's a lot of vulnerabilities that we carry within us. And every time we have an additional vulnerability, that makes us a little bit more vulnerable to somebody taking advantage of us. And so an abuser is really good at identifying what those things are that we're looking for and what those things are that maybe hold us back, right? Maybe it's simply self-esteem. What 15-year-old doesn't suffer from self-esteem struggles, right? So once that vulnerability has been spotted, they begin this subtle exploitation. And so let's assume we're talking about a sexual exploitation victim here and a young girl. If she's looking for affection and identity and maybe pushing boundaries of her family a little bit and rebelling and wanting to like get out and have some independence, right? And maybe she wants to go out and doesn't want to tell her parents where she's at because she's frustrated that she doesn't have more independence. How many times have we heard that story? Her exploiter will prey on that and create an opportunity for that need to be met. And in the process of doing that, we'll develop trust and loyalty. Now, if you're talking about a labor trafficking victim, which more often than not happens internationally, across borders, is where we see a lot of labor trafficking, that vulnerability might be poverty. It may simply be an inability to be able to move forward economically in the communities that they're from. Or it could be debt related. There could be family debt that forces that individual into a situation where they're looking for opportunities that they may not necessarily have felt comfortable looking for before because they're desperate. And poverty creates desperation. At any rate, again, an abuser takes advantage of that vulnerability and identifies it and begins to play into that. And through that process, what they do is they develop trust and loyalty. They create an opportunity that that victim believes has possibility for them to have their needs met. And when our needs feel like they're not being met, when that opportunity is created, it's extremely powerful, right? There's a bond that we start to build when we start to trust somebody because we want to assume that somebody has our best interest. So there's a lure, there's a conversation, an opportunity, like I said. And then there's this ask or a suggestion. And for a sexual exploitation victim, that may be that they've now developed a relationship with this person, and maybe this 15-year-old girl really believes that her predator is her boyfriend. That's really normal. And that's what he wants her to believe. Because your boyfriend wouldn't want you to have to do something that was harmful, or that was bad for you, or that didn't have your best interest in her, right? We want to believe that our intimate partners have our best interests in heart. And so it might be a suggestion of, gosh, we're really getting low on money. Like, what do you think about maybe just like sleeping with my friend? It's not a big deal. I know it seems kind of weird, but I think we can get some cash out of it, and then we can get out of town. It's really what we want to do, right? Which from an adult brain, we might be sitting here going, no, that's crazy, right? But from a 15-year-old brain, it isn't quite there yet. They kind of second guess themselves. They go, well, it seems a little weird. Why would my boyfriend be asking me to sleep with somebody else? But, I don't know, maybe we need the money, right? And so they begin to compromise some of their moral understanding and their moral standards, which are pretty flimsy at 15 anyway. You know, those are a little fragile. And once that compromising starts to happen, is really where they take the first step into exploitation. And it may not even be yet the act of being turned out, of them being sold, or them even having sex with somebody, right? But it's that compromising of themselves and that manipulation that's starting to happen, that is really where that exploitation takes strongest inward. And once you walk down that path, a little bit further, and a little bit further, before you know it, you don't know how to turn back. You don't know how to talk about the things that have happened because there's shame involved. You don't really know how to look for help because you probably can't tell your parents what has happened, or maybe you're scared to tell your parents what has happened, right? There's so many different reasons why we go, no, I don't know, and we get a little paralyzed with fear, right, and shame. And for a 15-year-old who does not have a good sense of their identity, does not have a strong sense of safety, and does not necessarily have a strong sense of how somebody should be treating them, right? Maybe they know inside their head, but those aren't deeply ingrained like they are in an adult brain. It's so easy for them to just be stuck. And the longer they are stuck and used and abused over and over and over again, the harder it is for them to seek help. To say, somebody's using me, right? Somebody's making money off of me, and somebody's forcing me to do these acts that I'm not choosing. And it goes a little bit deeper. So sometimes this can look like a threat, right? Sometimes it can be a threat against their family. We see that a lot in labor trafficking, actually. The threat that their family would be harmed, or the threat that their family will not be able to pay for the things that they need to pay for, or pay off a debt that they have. Huge, huge when we're talking talking about poverty issues, debt plays a critical role in labor trafficking. But also, in sexual exploitation, we see threat happening. So if you guys think a little bit about domestic violence relationships, you probably have a framework of understanding of how there's a cycle that happens as far as affection and abuse and then affection again, right? And it's a cycle that you're not really sure when it's going to happen or how it's going to happen, but the person who is harming you is also the person who is loving you. And it's extremely complicated for the brain to try to separate those things. And it becomes so traumatic, in fact, that the brain starts to go into survival mode because it can't really process everything that's going on. And we're just going from the next moment because we don't know if the next moment is going to be safe or not. So we're just taking one step at a time, and we can't think about the future. And we can't think about the past because we just have to think about staying safe right now and doing what we need to do to stay safe. And this happens on an extreme level for human trafficking victims. Because their control has been stripped from them, and they've been manipulated into a situation where they don't have control, they no longer know what safety is. And when you don't know how to establish safety for yourself, you're constantly in a state of fear. And you're constantly in a state of appeasement because you don't know how to be safe. So you just say yes to everything. This is a classic situation for an exploitation victim. You don't know how to say no because you don't know what's safe. And the likelihood is that if you say no, you won't be safe. It might not happen right this second, but at some point in time, you're not going to be safe. And that's really where we get caught up into this lack of control. So, I want to talk a little bit about why survivors need support. We talked about power and control, right? This wheel of power and control that's constantly being manipulated and constantly being abused and constantly not knowing what safety is. Pimps control their victims physically, emotionally, and psychologically, similar to domestic violence. So a pimp may not have to hit his victim to get her to do what she wants, right? And I apologize, I use often he is a pimp and her as a victim, when in reality, that's not always true. Sometimes we have female pimps, sometimes we have male victims. We see the full picture, quite a few male victims so far this year. So, barriers to leaving. So, if you never graduated from high school, what opportunities do you have? Pretty few, right? You can't really get a good job, if any. You can't really move forward with your life if you can't get a good job. You can't really get housing if you don't have a good job. There's a lot of barriers if you don't have an education. Homelessness. In most cases, a survivor of exploitation has their housing linked to their abuser, similar to a domestic violence situation. So if you leave, you have nothing. You don't have your housing. Sometimes you don't even have your clothes. You have all that's on your back, and that's it. And that's a really scary thing to step out into. And you have to have a lot of determination to step into the unknown, because sometimes the unknown can be more scary than the known, even if the known is harmful, right? Because at least we sort of know what the rules are. We sort of know where our food is going to come from, right? But if we don't know where our food is going to come from, that can be terrifying. And sometimes there's children involved. Sometimes our survivors have young children involved. If you don't know how you're going to feed your child, it's even harder to step out into that unknown. So unemployment, obviously. If you're homeless and you don't have an education, it's really hard to get a job. And on top of that, many of our survivors have criminal history that is often linked with activity they have been forced to do, right? So they have not had control over the fact that they've been maybe out on the street soliciting, been forced to prostitute themselves, and then they got picked up by law enforcement and were charged as an adult or as a juvenile. It wasn't until, actually I think it was 2011, where we stopped prosecuting children for prostituting in Washington State, knowing that they were being abused by a pimp. That's crazy. 2011 was not that long ago, right? They also might have drug charges. A lot of our individuals that we serve at Scarlet Road have engaged in drug activity as a form of manipulation enforced on them by their pimps. A lot of them have used drugs as a coping mechanism because they are in such constant state of survival and fear. The only thing that they can do to calm down is to take drugs, right? And sometimes their pimps just use it because they know if they get them hooked, it's a lot easier to control them and make them do what they want if the carrot is their fix that they need, right, after they've been hooked. And trauma. So, one of the things we talk about at Scarlet Road all the time is trauma-informed practice. How do we understand how trauma has impacted somebody's choices and behavior? Because trauma always impacts our choices and our behavior. We do things because of the things that have happened to us. And they have not only emotionally impacted us, but we now know that trauma actually changes our pathways in our brain. Physically changes how our brain works, right? So if you've been conditioned to function and survive, really, in a certain way, and you then step into a new world, right, where the rules are different and it's our normal world, but you're still operating in survival world, because that's the way your brain knows how to work, there's going to be a lot of challenges to functioning in this world that way, right? Things like you're always in crisis, because your brain knows how to function in crisis. It's comfortable for your brain to function in crisis. But that's not really how the real world works, right? Like, the daily world, we don't want to be in crisis all the time because it's really uncomfortable. But for somebody who's comfortable in crisis, they start creating crisis. Because that's what they're creating. Their brain is creating crisis. And that can cause all number of difficulties when it comes to, maintaining a job or healthy relationships or any other, normal behaviors. So trauma is a big, big piece. And then that really leads me into the impacts of exploitation. Victims of exploitation experience extreme levels of trauma and often feel trapped, even if their abusers aren't physically restraining them. Our survivors that we work with Scarlet Road regularly will feel the need to go back to an abuser for months and years after they've left. And it's because of that bond and that connection that they've had with their abuser. And it's because of how trauma impacts their brain. And it is a consistent conversation that we have to have with our survivors around what's safe, what's appropriate, what's healthy, what's easy to use in your life, what is that person offering, right? And the bottom line is abusers are fantastic at luring them back. Why? Because there's money to be had, right? So there's a constant draw back into this life of exploitation. And it's a draw that's unconscious. That unless they're intentionally addressing it, will often just be in what their default behaviors are. So it's a really hard, long process to work with them. And I think that often often emotional and psychological abuse is underplayed. But it can almost be as powerful as physically being restrained, right? Sometimes you don't have to be handcuffed to a situation or to a person in order to feel like you don't have any control over leaving that situation. And so I think it's really an important piece to point out. And that really is that emotional breakdown and brainwashing that happens through that manipulation process. And when we talk about sexual exploitation, what I started at the beginning was this core. It reaches down into your core identity. And it starts sort of tearing apart who you believe you are. And ultimately you start to believe that you're only worth what people are telling you you're worth and what your body can make. And you believe that in your soul, right? And when that happens, it's very difficult to believe something else. We have a client that we were working with. We've worked with her about 2.5 years, I think just over 2 years. She's done incredible in our program. She's made so much progress. She's going to school, she's getting her education, she's got housing for her and her young son. But she's made like progress after progress after progress. She's engaging. And a couple of months ago, she kind of hit a roadblock. We found out that there were some more criminal charges in a different state that hadn't been addressed yet. And that really was a blow to her that she didn't even realize were outstanding. And it kind of just deflated all of the progress that she made in just one hit, right? And what it did was take her back to that place that she was at when she left a life of exploitation. And she said, she sat in our office and she said, I'm just never going to be anything more than a prostitute. She's so much more than a prostitute. She is a beautiful, energetic, humorous young woman with so much potential. But that is what she believed in the core about herself. And this is 2 years of work in a program, right? Of us continually feeding positive information about her identity to her. And yet it was so ingrained in her that when she hit a brick wall, her default was to believe that this was her identity and this was going to be the only way out, right? She would just go back, and that was really her way up. So that gives you an idea of even what you're fighting when you're working with this population. Very deep-rooted identity issues. All right, so I want to, my time is going, I'm talking so long, sorry guys. So I wanted to share a little bit about how we are making an impact at Scarlet Road, or how we hope to be making an impact. We have to believe in a three-pronged approach: prevent, reach, and restore. If we don't have to be doing our job, we are winning, right? If I can work myself out of the job, I'm there. I will definitely go to a different arm of social work. We really believe that prevention is important, and a piece of that is within our young people. So because we know that the age of exploitation is so young in County, we've decided to approach the schools directly and to educate our children directly because they are the ones that are being approached. So we are currently, I believe, in about 20 high school and middle schools throughout Kitsap County. We offer an in-classroom curriculum to provide safety and knowledge around what it looks like for somebody to really be pursuing you, how to protect yourself, how to protect your friends, how to have open conversation around these safety issues. But it doesn't just stop there. We also talk about things like healthy relationships, right? And what good boundaries are in relationships. Because the relationship part is how it starts for these teenagers. They genuinely believe that somebody wants to be in a relationship with them. So we talk a lot about all those different things. I think this last year we served about 3,000 students under the age of 18 in high So really cool to be able to have conversation with these kids and really have them be advocates in their own classrooms, in their own communities, and with their peers around what's safe. And we've seen some really cool stuff come out of it. Not only have we seen youth disclose information around abuse that's happened to them, or that they are personally being exploited, we've also seen youth step up and really take a stronghold and say, I want to make this an important topic in my school or my community, and I want to advocate for this. So they've done school projects, they've done, rallies, and all sorts of other areas that they have the control, to make change in their communities. We also feel that it's really important to use nationally and state recommended training for this material. So we've done a combination for our school curriculum of some of the curriculums that are out there, and then also infused really important local information. So they know what to look for on a local level. We offer a comprehensive service provider training for victims identification and support. This is also really important because we know that our most vulnerable populations are being victimized, and so that's not always children, but it could be a homeless adult, or it could be somebody who is experiencing extreme poverty, right? And so if our social service providers can see some of the red flags, they can help support somebody, maybe even before they become exploited. So that's been really important. And then community awareness, like we are here tonight. It's important that you guys know what to look for, because you never know if it's going to be your daughter, or your granddaughter, or your neighbor's kid. It could be any of them. We also believe in this reach mentality. We know that survivors don't always know how to ask for help because there's so much shame and stigma around this issue. And it's gotten better. The more we talk about it, the better it gets. But there's a ton of shame and stigma. So we go to where we know survivors are. We go to the street. We go to PK races. We go to the areas where we know that we might interface with them. And just simply let them know that we're here, that we understand their experience, and we want to support them. And we do a lot of crisis intervention around that. So we create safe exit solutions for them. When we have a survivor disclose that they are ready to leave and they want help, we strategize a safety plan. Sometimes it's extremely dangerous for them to leave. And we want to make sure that we create the highest level of safety, whether that's involving law enforcement or relocation or any other number of things that we can put in place that will allow for that person to be free and safe. We also have the first and only drop-in center in Kitsap County for survivors. This is a safe place that victims can come and without expectation and without anything that they have to do, right? They can just come and be safe. A lot of our survivors are homeless, especially at the beginning, and sometimes our local shelters require that they leave the shelter at like 8 a.m. in the morning. So if we can offer them a few hours in the day that is a safe place, that they're not roaming the street, potentially bumping into their abuser, that's huge for them. So we want to be as available as we can for our survivors. And also, really that drop-in center is a physical reference to saying, we understand your experience. It's okay, and there is help available. Which sometimes a survivor just needs. We've had tons of survivors come to our door who say, you're the first agency we've been to, or I've been to, that understands my experience, and I don't have to tell you everything. So a lot of our social services agencies don't fully understand the experience of what it's like to be in exploitation. And when they have to go through telling their story and reliving that trauma, it can be extremely overwhelming for them, and they might get to the point where they say, it's not worth it. It's too painful for me to go through this. Because they're not ready. So we create a safe space for that to happen slowly, but we know and understand their experience so that we can help them through that process. And then our restore process. We offer intensive case management, mentoring, skill building, client established goals, and long-term holistic support. We do not have an end cap for how long somebody can be in our program because we know that healing takes different amounts of time for different people. And everybody's experience and expectation is a little bit different. So we really want to honor their survivor's journey and be consistently moving towards goals and consistently reevaluating where they're at. We obviously don't want somebody to be codependent on us, but we do want to be able to support them in their timing and their process. So the balance of continuing to check in with that person and see how they feel about their sustainability, how they feel about their ability to, really be without our support, and what is their long-term goal and where are they moving towards it. We work on so many different little facets of sustainability. We have kind of 5 pillars that we work on when it comes to our restore arm. We work on, first and foremost, freedom from exploitation. We want to see them leave their exploitation situation and remain free from it, obviously. The second is we want to see that that person is emotionally well. That can take years and a lot of processing. A big piece of that is mental health support. So we encourage, we do not require, but we encourage every single client that we work with to have access to mental health support, and that comes in a variety of mental health support. That comes in some traditional therapy. It also comes in some alternative therapies that we have partnerships with, such as equine therapy or art therapy or body movement therapy. Okay, so freedom from exploitation, emotionally well, self-sustaining. We want somebody to have agency, to be competent without us, and to be able to support themselves. That could be education planning, it could be career planning, it could be simply getting through the criminal charge process so they can get a job, right? But we want to make sure that they are moving in a direction of sustainability. Stable housing. If you don't have stable housing, it's pretty hard to think about getting a job, right? It's pretty hard to think about anything besides the fact that you don't have a bed to sleep in, and you don't have safety to sleep in. So stable housing is one of the first things we work on with our clients to help transition them from crisis mode into stability. And the last pillar that we work on in our restore is healthy community. Community has incredible power, and it is so important for individuals not just to have community at Scarlet Road, but to be developing community outside of us and in their home communities, so that when we slowly drop off, they are supported and connected to people who care about them and who are moving forward with them in life, right? We all need that in our lives. But for somebody who has been plucked sort of out of this subculture and expected to function in a normal society that doesn't really know all the rules anymore or doesn't know how to be paid anymore, building community can be a really painful process for them. Maybe they don't want to share about their past, right? Or maybe they don't want to, they don't know all the social roles anymore because they've been disconnected for so long from them. And so in those areas, that's really where mentoring is really important. It helps to build that framework, and we really encourage our mentors to take our clients to take them to church with them, or take them along to some of those places that we interface in and healthy community, and build natural friendships that can then carry forward. But that has some safety because they're with somebody that understands their experience. Okay, last slide. How do you be involved? There's lots of ways. My challenge to you guys would be that you not stay silent. and that you educate yourself further. One little presentation that I need only gives you a snapshot of this issue. There's so much to learn. This is a really important issue for especially our young people in our community, but for everyone who's a survivor of exploitation. They need a voice for people to say, we understand your experience, it's not your fault, we support you, and we're going to fight for your rights. And we're going to try and create a system that's more accommodating for you, right? And so all of those things are really important. I think you guys obviously have an opportunity in a legislative and government place to be a voice in those arenas too. But I would challenge you guys to learn more and really not be silent. When somebody talks about this issue, speak up. Engage them. If they don't fully understand, educate them. Because that's the only way we're able to make change to our policies and to our laws. And it's really the only way that we've been able to make change really very progressively in Washington State. And if we can create a system that better takes care of these survivors, why shouldn't we? Right? Why shouldn't we be caring for them in that way? So, I really love this quote by Brené Brown. Shame is the most powerful master emotion. It's the fear that we're not good enough. So powerful, right? And shame can come in many, many, many different shapes and sizes, right? We've all experienced shame in some way in our life. So I would just encourage you to remember that when you think about this population. They're really bound the most by shame. And that doesn't mean that we don't have active criminal activity, right? And abusers that need to be prosecuted. But the pathway to hope is overcoming shame. And if we have a voice to say it's not your fault, we understand, we care about you and your safety and your future, that helps their shame go away. Right? Little by little. Alright, so if you want to get in touch with me, that's how you do it. Thank you guys very much for your ear. I know I've been a little long-winded. Does anybody have questions?
If you do, just raise your hand and I'll bring the mic to you.
So you work with about 100 people a year in this county?
Well, every year, actually, that we've worked with individuals, the number has gone up. So I don't know what the cap is. This is just to date in 2018 has been 100.
So then you must know who about 100 kids are.
You know who some of them are.
Why aren't they all in jail?
Well, there's complexities to that answer. Some of our individual survivors are not fully willing and able to go to trials, right? It's pretty traumatizing to sit in a courtroom and have to testify against your abuser when you're going through all of those emotions of abuse and shame and trauma and affection even with that person, right? And try to figure out all that when you're in the healing process. So it can be quite complex for somebody to say, I want to actually pursue my abuser from a legal perspective. Additionally, on top of that, it can be extremely hard to prosecute adult cases in this industry. And that is because it's he said, she said, a lot of the time when you're talking about coercion, right? Sometimes it's not always cut and dry. And unless law enforcement can catch them in the act, it can be really hard in a courtroom to be able to nail down the right things to be able to prosecute those hits. We have done an excellent job in Kitsap County. I don't know if you guys have noticed some of the prosecutions that have come up. Kitsap County has actually put forth some of the most severe prosecutions against kids in the nation. So we're doing our part, but it's really hard work. And it's also sometimes a matter of priority. Law enforcement have a lot of issues on their plate that they're trying to tackle. And in our area, I think most of our law enforcement agencies are understaffed and under-resourced. And so this can be an issue that takes a lot of resources to get the data and the information that you need to prosecute. And sometimes it's more resources than they have the capacity or the willingness of capacity to put in because they're tackling a lot of issues at the same time. So it's multifaceted. There's a lot of different reasons. It's complex, but the more social pressure we put on our prosecutor's office and our law enforcement, the more it becomes a priority.
I'm confused about the housing.
Yeah.
Well, I don't understand where they can go and live.
I'm sorry.
Where the big cities can go and live.
Oh, when they leave?
When you take them away from their place.
When we take them away from their family, yeah. Well, in Kitsap County, we do not have very many good resources specifically for survivors. We don't have any crisis support just for survivors of exploitation. So for us, we get really creative and we work with our local resources to the best of our ability. Sometimes that means working with our shelters. Sometimes that means working with our transitional houses. Sometimes that means getting creative and working with churches or communities where maybe there's an extra, we know there's a mother-in-law cottage or there's a temporary place where we can place them if it's safe for them. But it's a huge issue for us. And we have a ton of clients who are homeless and in instability after they leave because in that transition period there is not enough resources to really serve the population that we have. So,
I mean, right now I don't trust a lot of the schools that are out there educating our kids. I don't understand how we can educate them better.
it's a challenge, yeah. It's a challenge. But we've made a lot of progress in the last 10 years. So we're on an uphill battle. We're still not at the top.
They say the top of the disease rate can be all the ones 5%.
Oh goodness.
That's
That's pretty low.
that's a lot.
Yeah.
What's your annual budget?
Not enough. Our annual budget is around $320,000.
You mentioned that you were in the schools in Kitsap County. Now, I know there are 5 districts in Kitsap County, school districts. That's a lot of schools. How are you getting into each of the schools?
A lot of work.
But do you have people who go to each of the middle schools and each of the high schools?
And work, so
In each district. That's a lot. I know in North Kitsap alone, there are 7 elementary schools, 2 middle schools, and 2 high schools.
So we try to work as much as possible with each district, but sometimes the districts are not as willing to work with us as we would like, and so sometimes we end up working directly with each school that we're in. And a lot of the reason why we're able to get into schools has been through teachers and parents advocating that this is an important issue to their PTA and to their, to their school boards and saying, we need education in our schools. There's nothing mandatory right now for teachers or for students on this issue. So it's really been through a lot of perseverance that our team has been able to get into the schools that we have. I think we've kind of hit a turning of the tide though, and we're seeing more schools much more open to this issue and having training in this issue than we've ever seen before. To the point, actually, this year we actually had to put a cap on it because we don't have enough staff time to be able to get our staff into all the schools that we would like to be into. For example, we're not in South Kitsap High School yet, and they asked us to come in this school year, and I'm not sure that we have capacity to do it because it's a lot of classrooms that we would be in and a ton of staff time that we just don't have capacity quite yet to do so in the future, right? But it's a lot of grit and muscle.
Hi, thank you for taking my question. I saw on your screen that you guys take donations. Do you guys take furniture, like table?
We do and we don't.
Okay.
We have often, I'll post it on our Facebook page, like we need these items. We don't have a storage unit or any way to store furniture or items, so we try to work with our local resources or a community of support when we do need furniture items. But we do take hygiene items in our office, and we take a variety of other items. I can give, if you want to email me, I can give you the whole list of things that we take. We also have kind of a cool partnership with Lucky Star Consignment, where clothing donations can be given to them under the name of Scarlet Road. In exchange, they give us free credit to come and bring our clients into the store and shop for whatever we need for that client, which has been really helpful for clients who, are coming off the street with nothing, and maybe they need a couple pairs of, a couple outfits to just kind of get them going in that transition process.
And my other question is that you said that this type of abuse is similar to domestic violence. So the question would be, have you or do you work side by side with a domestic violence agency?
Yes, very closely.
Okay.
Yeah, we work a
So
lot
that's
with
what
we work a lot with our YWCA here locally, and we work with their shelter. There are some uniquenesses between the two agencies, and we've found a really heartfelt partner in the way, as well as some other domestic violence partnerships outside of Kitsap, but in Jefferson County and down in Thurston and Shelton. So we try to get as creative as possible and collaborate as much as possible.
So now that you asked familiar questions, my original question was, at what point, when you have a teenager, do you engage the parent, or do you protect confidentiality with privacy of children? To me personally, the school has no business being in my child's life. So if something were to happen, I expect a phone call. My child's 28 now, doing great. Along that line, it bothers me one thing in particular that comes up. Right now in our world, we see all over the news, transgenders teaching in the libraries. What's the word? Yeah, the gender, boys and girls not knowing who the heck they are. I mean, it's kind of being creative, and then down the road, they're going to need you. Right?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Is that kind of where you're coming from?
Yeah, I mean, so for us, when it comes to parent engagement, we try to engage the parent right from the beginning. One, because we're dealing with a minor, but also because when you have a youth who has been exploited and the trauma that's come with that, it's really important. I mean, a part of that youth community is their family. And so when the family is safe to engage with, which sometimes they're not always safe. We have situations where there's, abuse in the home, or we've even had situations, not uncommonly, where the family has actually been selling the child. Obviously we're weighing safety and whether or not we have to make a referral to CPS in those situations. But we really engage, we want the parent to understand the healing process and to be an active participant in the healing process for that youth.
Okay, I really like what you're doing. I love it. I learned the same thing through a Celebrate Recovery Youth through church council. How do you move forward knowing that there are school districts, and I'm going to name a couple, university because it's one of them, that teaches and they're engaging certain things in their health, quote unquote, classes?
I think that for us, and that's one of the reasons why our curriculum teaches healthy boundaries, healthy relationships, right? Like, we try to just engage each youth with some fundamentals that will keep that youth safe moving forward.
I guess my point is that what you're doing now is amazing, and
And you could approach some of these schools that are very liberally teaching our kids, but a lot of us don't want to teach and tell them, your kids are going to end up with this. It's a good way to screw these kids' heads up. We're going to need that later on in life. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. And I think that that's always a conversation of how to engage the schools to understand what safety is, right? And we all have a role in that. And I think that bringing in new, opportunities and experience and exposure to a variety of different safety issues helps to diversify that for the school system. So I think for us, we're constantly trying to just help them understand, what this looks like when abuse happens.
One more thing, and then we have to move on. There's a church on the Mitchell Road where Mitchell meets. You go by South Kitsap and it's a car wash, kind of goes like that. That church every third Sunday, I believe, will put out furnishings and things, and if you want to donate, they'll take it, and if you need it, take it.
Oh.
You can swap, I'm just saying.
That's a great resource,
I
yeah.
think it's a Lutheran church.
Okay,
So,
wonderful, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you think of the name, shoot me an email.
I will.
Because those resources are always great. Yeah. I don't want to take too much time up, so if we need to cut us off.
Got time for one more question.
One more, okay. Great.
One of the things you're saying that you don't have enough people to go to different schools, and I've been on your website, and do you have you thought about making videos that you can send to the schools rather than having to have someone there, and videos that are specifically deemed to keep teenagers and younger attention, because this is amazing information, but they're not going to sit through this kind of thing.
This is not our school curriculum.
Right, but you do have something that you can send out if you can't get to the school?
We have thought about it, and we have chosen not to, specifically for some very strategic reasons. One of the reasons why is because when we go into a school and we teach the curriculum, which is not this curriculum, but it is very youth interactive, what we found is that at almost every single classroom we teach, there has been disclosures of abuse. It's not always sexual exploitation, but it almost every time there's a student that comes forward who wants to share their experience of abuse in some way with our advocate. And so we've chosen to have trained staff facilitating those conversations in the curriculum. And additionally, we support the teachers and help to provide training for them so that they kind of know what to expect when we have a kid disclose some of this stuff. And I think that when you don't have that level of support for somebody who's disclosing abuse, it can be really, really, our advocates to be trained and well-versed in this to be able to address those needs on an immediate level and very timely in order to create safety for that kid. And it's proven to be a good choice based on the number of individuals who have disclosed through our school curriculum. So that's why, ultimately, we have thought about it, but we just feel like it's safer. So, yeah. Thank you guys very much.
So as we do, oh, come on, we can have a better applause than that. I know this crowd, come on. Thank you. We always like to leave a memento, so this nice eagle with a pearl, and we hope that you'll wear it and think of us fondly, Kitsap Patriots Tea Party. So thank you for coming. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you guys.
Thank you. Now,